Happy morning, children. Today, Tuesday, I am your English teacher in Vittal Matriculation School. Today, we are going to see a prose lesson. The title of the lesson is When the Trees Walked. When the trees walked. Is it possible? Where we find trees walked? Okay. Now, let's see these pictures. All of you having your book, we have to discuss. Children, what do you see in these pictures? So many children are playing under the tree. Here, one monkey ready to jump. I think so. Yes. Here, this monkey ready to jump, and this monkey playing joyfully like this boy. This monkey playing joyfully like this boy. Here the crow has shouted, right? Then here two parrot is here. Then the boy reading a book. Then some boys playing well. And here squirrel trying to take a fruit. And the boy also trying to take this fruit. Here the house is there, lake, mountains. So many things we have to see in these pictures, right? So they next move on to the section. Here, when the trees walked, this prose lesson have three sections. It have three sections. Now first we see the first section of this prose. When the trees walked. When the trees walked. Listen carefully, children. Let me read it. Listen to your teacher. Read the first part of the story. Many things described in the story can be seen in the picture. Find and name them. Here, so many pictures we have to see, right? Here, this lesson explained by the author. Author name was Ruskin Bond. Here is the speaker of the lesson and his grandfather. Let me read it, the prose lesson. Listen carefully. One morning, while I was sitting beside grandfather on the veranda steps, I noticed the tendril of a creeping vine trailing nearby. Creeping vine trailing nearby. As we sat there in the soft sunshine of a North Indian writer, I saw the tendril moving slowly towards grandfather. 20 minutes later, it had crossed the step and was touching his feet. 20 minutes later, it had crossed the step and was touching his feet. Let me explain these 4 lines. This story is set in a North Indian city called Dehradun. What is Dehradun? One day the author was sitting on the balcony steps with his grandfather, right? One day the author was sitting on the balcony steps with his grandfather. He noticed that a slender thread-like stem coming out of a climber plant from a creeping tree near them. It was early in the morning and there was soft sunshine and there was have a soft sunshine, and maybe a light breeze that moved the Tendril slowly towards his grandfather. That moved the tendril slowly towards his grandfather. After 20 minutes, it had crossed the balcony steps and it was touching his feet. The author says North Indian writer in this paragraph. The author says North Indian winter in this paragraph. It refers to a pleasant to cold temperature. It refers to a pleasant to cold temperature. Could be in October to March. Can you all understood this paragraph? Here veranda means a roofed platform. A roofed platform along the outside of a house. A roofed platform along the outside of a house. A roofed platform. What is mean by veranda? A roofed platform. Then creeping, growing along the ground. Here creeping means growing along the ground. What is mean by creeping? Growing along the ground. Next, vine. Climbing. Here vine means a climbing. A climbing or trailing woody stemmed plant related to the grapevine. Next, trailing. Here trailing means drawn along behind something or someone. Drawn along behind. Drawn along behind. Behind what? Something or someone. Behind, drawn along behind something or someone. Next, tendril. Tendril means a slender thread-like appendage of a climbing plant, often growing in a spiral form that stretches out and twines round any suitable support. Again, let me explain it. Tendril means a slender thread-like appendage of a climbing plant. A slender thread-like appendage of a climbing plant. Next, let me read the second para. There is probably a scientific explanation for the plant's behavior. Something to do with light and warmth perhaps. But I liked to think it moved across the steps simply because it wanted to be near grandfather. One always felt like drawing close to him. Sometimes when I sat by myself beneath a tree, I would feel rather lonely, but as soon as grandfather joined me, the garden became a happy place. Children, do you all like garden, right? Grandfather had served many years in the Indian Forest Service. It's short form IFS. And it was natural that he should know trees and like them. On his retirement. He built a bungalow. He built a bungalow on the outskirts of Dehradun. Outskirts of Dehradun. Planting trees all around, lime, mango, orange and guava. Also eucalyptus, jacaranda and Persian lilacs. In the fertile Dune Valley, plants and trees grew tall and strong. Tall and strong. Let me explain this paragraph. The tendrils had moved towards grandfather due to the warm sunshine and some breeze perhaps. But according to the author, he had a different explanation. What it is? He felt the plant liked to come near his grandfather and that's why it had moved. He felt his grandfather always drove people towards him. When the author sat below a tree by himself, he always felt lonely. But his grandfather joined him. But if his grandfather joined him, he felt the garden became a happier place. He felt the garden became a happier place. He felt the garden became a happier place. He had a reason for it. But his grandfather had worked for the Indian Forest Service. And he knew well about trees. After his retirement, he had built a bungalow on the outer parts of Dehradun. He planted many trees around his house. What is it? Like lime, mango, orange and guava. And also eucalyptus, jacaranda, also known as fern tree. It is the fern tree. It is a fern tree and Persian lilacs. In the parts near the Dehradun Valley are known for their fertile soil. And the trees looked tall, healthy and strong. Fertile soil and the trees looked tall and healthy, strong. Then here fertile means capable of producing. Healthy crops or vegetation. Producing healthy crops. Next, let me read the third paragraph. There were other trees in the compound before the house was built, including an old people that had forced its way through the walls of an abandoned outhouse, knocking the bricks down with its vigorous growth. People trees are great show-offs. Even when there is no breeze, their broad-chested, slim-waisted leaves will spin like tops determined to attract your attention and invite you into the shade. Grandmother had wanted the people tree cut down, but grandfather had said, let it be. We can always build another outhouse. We can always build another outhouse. Now let me explain the third paragraph. Here what the author said, before the bungalow was built, there were many other trees in that compound, including an old peepul tree. It had grown and pushed itself inside the walls of a lonely outhouse. After breaking the bricks with its strongly grown barks, the author says people trees are generally boastful. Even when there is no breeze, the leaves spin and move like tops just to attract us to come into its shade. He has described this part with humor and imagination. He says the leaves have broad chest and slim waists. The author's grandmother did not like the peepul tree emerging into the outhouse. The author's grandmother did not like the peepul tree emerging into the outhouse. She wanted to cut down the tree, but grandfather had told her that they could build another outhouse and let the peepul tree remain. Here abandon means left without care. Left without care. Here abandon means left without care. Here vigorous means healthy and strong. Let me explain the final paragraph of section 1. Let me read it. Grandmother didn't mind trees, but she preferred growing flowers and was constantly ordering catalogs and seeds. Grandfather helped her out with the gardening not because he was crazy about flower gardens, but because he liked watching butterflies, and there's only one way to attract butterflies, he said, and that is to grow flowers for them. Let me explain this paragraph. Grandmother was not against trees, but she liked flowering plants, better. She constantly bought a complete list of seeds for growing flowers. Grandfather also helped her with her garden. More than the flower garden, grandfather liked watching the butterflies that were attracted to the flowers. That's why he helps his grandmother. That's why he helps his grandmother. He had mentioned that what growing flowers is the only way to attract butterflies. Growing flowers is the growing flowers is the only way to attract butterflies. Are you all understanding this section 1? Hope you all understanding this section 1, right? Here, have a glossary. Fertile. Fertile means able to produce a lot of plants or crops. Here, fertile means able to produce a lot of plants or crops. Abundant, left without care. Abundant, left without care. Vigorous, healthy and strong. Vigorous, healthy and strong. Let me explain this section again. Listen carefully. This story is set in a North Indian city called Dehradun. One day the author was sitting on the balcony steps with his grandfather. He noticed that a slender thread. Threads like stem coming out of a clumber plant. He noticed that a slender thread like stem coming out of a clumber plant from a creeping tree. It was early in the morning. And there was soft sunshine. And maybe a light breeze that moved the tendril slowly towards his grandfather. After 20 minutes, it had crossed the balcony steps. After 20 minutes, it had crossed the balcony steps and it was touching his feet. The author says North Indian winter in the paragraph. It refers to a pleasant to cold temperature. Could be in October to March. The tendrils had moved towards grandfather due to the warm sunshine and some breeze perhaps. But according to the author, he had a different explanation. He felt the plant likely to come near his grandfather, and that's why it had moved. He felt his grandfather always drove people towards him. When the author sat below a tree by himself, he always felt lonely. But if his father joined him, he felt the garden become a happier place. He had a reason for it. His grandfather had worked for the Indian Forest Service. It's as IFS. And he knew well about trees. After his retirement, he had built a bungalow on the outer parts of Dehradun. He planted many trees around his house. What are the trees? Like lime trees, mango trees, orange trees, guava trees, eucalyptus, Jacaranda, also known as fern tree, right? And Persian lilacs also. The parts near the Dehradun Valley are known for their fertile soil. The parts near the Dehradun Valley are known for their fertile soil, and the trees looked tall, healthy, and strong. And the trees looked tall, healthy, and strong. Next, before the bungalow was built,